Welcome to day 24 of our journey through 1 Samuel. I hope you enjoyed your reading of chapter 24. Let's go ahead and dig right into it. Here we read about this famous story of Saul and David in a cave and how David spares Saul's life. But this is not a story about compassion. It's a story about understanding the leadings and workings of God. In the American church, we've adopted a dangerous theology of figuring out the Lord's leadings and workings and speaking to us. I call this theology open and closed door theology. Open door is the belief that God opens opportunities as we go through life, and our job is to make sure that we walk through them. So when an opportunity is available, it's because God has made it available. Therefore, if you're wondering where to go or what to do or how to find God's will, we just need to follow the bread trail of open doors. Closed door theology is the belief that God closes opportunities as we go through life, and our job is to make sure that we pass those things up and don't follow them. So open door is something that God approves or supports, and closed door is something that he does not approve and does not support. And I've seen people move to other states, marry people, quit jobs, get degrees, buy houses and toys simply because of opened or closed doors. But is this how we find God's will? Well, let's look and see what we learn about this type of theology from David and Saul in this story in 1 Samuel 24. Here, Saul just got done beating the Philistines and is now in hot pursuit of David with 3,000 choice men. He was breathing threats of murder towards David, and now he had 3,000 men to go hunt down David and his band of about 300 men. So let's look what we read in this chapter. Let's go ahead and turn to 1 Samuel 24:3. He says this: He, being Saul, came to the sheepfolds on the way where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself, meaning he went in to sleep. And now David and his men were sitting in the inner recess of the cave. David was in the same cave that Saul went to sleep in. That seems providential to me, doesn't it? God opened a wide door/cave for David. Now remember that God had already promised David Saul's throne, that he had already chosen David to be the anointed king, and that Saul was increasingly becoming more and more evil, and Israel needed a new king. Israel needed David. David was just waiting for Saul to die, and now here he is. Of all the caves and all the valleys, here he is. Here is Saul. David could definitely see the huge open door to his future as God's will, couldn't he? After all, his men certainly did. Let's read what he says. Let's read in verse 4 of that same chapter. The men of David said to David, "Behold, this is the day which the Lord has said to you. Behold, I'm about to give your enemy into your hands, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you." Then David arose. He cut off the edge of Saul's robe secretly. He didn't take his life. It made sense for him to take Saul's life. And to the naked eye, it seemed like a no-brainer, yet David didn't do it. In fact, he had to persuade his men not to take Saul's life because they thought David was wrong for not doing it. I want you to listen to me right now. The truth to that door was, though it was opened, God did not desire David to walk through it. However, the enemy would have loved David to kill God's anointed King Saul and take the throne out of force instead of inheriting it in God's timing. The truth is for us that doors are open all the time. And sometimes God opens them because God does open doors. It is something he uses. But sometimes the enemy opens them, and sometimes they're just open. There are lots of open doors around us that we should not take. Just because it's cheaper to move to Alabama and my family called me and told me that a house on their street is on the market and it's underpriced, does not mean that God opened a door for me to follow his will and move to Alabama. In fact, if you're thinking about moving to a different state, then I encourage you to change your prayer. Don't just ask God, should we go? Change it. Say, Lord, have you released us from where we're planted? It's different than just walking through doors. Here's the thing about open doors. We tend to see them wherever we're looking for them. But what about closed doors? Since when does God not want to test us? Think about that. Since when does God not want to reveal what's in our hearts? And since when does he want everything to be easy? The truth is that he lets doors shut and he waits to see if we're going to kick them in. Sometimes we need to take off our San Diego sandals and show up in steel-toed boots ready to kick doors down. Remember this, when God gives the word or the leading, no door can stay shut. They all have to come tumbling down. Now, as we read the rest of this story, we see the power of God working through David's desire to seek God's path more than his own perceived path. The story of David is a great challenge to us to ask God if he desires us to move or stay put. It sure is easier and faster to walk through whatever open doors in front of us, but often that's not God's best for us. And sometimes it's actually a path away from what and where God desires us to be. We need to be better at asking him what doors to walk through and what doors to kick down, and then be patient, and we got to wait to hear his answer. David's actions of waiting on the Lord led him down the right path to the throne and saved him from the sin of taking the throne in his own time. When we walk through open doors or wait at closed doors, many times we miss God's best for us. So I challenge you today, what is in front of you? What are you asking God for? Don't just wait for the open door. Ask him, what open doors should I walk through? And what closed doors do I need to kick down? I hope you enjoyed 1 Samuel 24 as much as I did. Have a blessed and wonderful day.